Excuse me, I keep getting the time wrong. But actually, don't panic too much. We'll get to that later. But I know you're bummed because the Blazers lost to Chicago. I'm a Bulls fan. But I did think the Bulls would get whacked last night. The fact that they won that game stunned me. I'm still amazed that the Blazers allowed that to happen. Up 20 in the second quarter. Joe Freeman and I are going to examine the game and also some of the peripheral things going on with the Blazers. What's up with Nurkic? Should Stotts really be on the hot seat? Can they ever fix this defense? Are they shooting too many threes? And much more. But first, let's just take a big picture look, Joe, at what that loss means. Now, you've covered the NBA for a long time. We all know these things just happen. You get upset, et cetera, et cetera. But I think there's a little bit more to this because this team came off a tough road trip and they were up 20, and it's the rebuilding Bulls. What do you think of the loss?
I mean, I kind of go back and forth on, how much to make of it. It's like one of the oldest cliches in basketball is the first home game after a long trip is really the last game of that trip. That said, to be up 20 at home, against a bad team, a shorthanded team, there's no way to sugarcoat that it was a bad loss. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because I know, we're going to talk about is this the end of the world and all that stuff moving forward. But, there's kind of two ways to look at this from a macro perspective and a micro perspective. And on the micro perspective, there are several things, obviously, that are plaguing this team right now. Defense, Yusef Nurkic, we'll get into all that moving forward. But from a macro level, man, we're 7 games into the season. I feel like I need to be Aaron Rodgers of the Packers and just be like, relax.
Not even 10%. Not even 10% through the season yet.
And look, man, as you've documented and you'll get into in more detail, the Blazers have played one of the more difficult schedules in the league, certainly of the better teams. And we can look at the standings right now. Who has great records in the West, and how far behind are the Blazers with their poor record? The Mavs are right there with them. The Nuggets are right there with them at 3 and 4. The Lakers are the Lakers, and the Suns are surprisingly in second place. But all that said, they're still 2 games back of second place. So we're 7 games in. I know that was a concerning loss, certainly an inexplicable loss. But I'm just, after all these years, I'm too early to panic. This team didn't get a training camp. I'm sure practices are hard to come by because there's a game every other night. They're breaking in 2 new starters in a different rotation. And so I'm going to give them a longer leash. I still think this team is going to be good by the end of the year. I've been underwhelmed so far, but it's kind of the story of the league right now, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it was a bad loss. I don't think it's the end of the world. I think the problem is, especially with a lot of fans, is that they're very anxious because of what happened last year. It was a down year. Nurkic was out. Zach Collins was out. Hood was out. You had a nice little burst at the bubble, but then you got rolled by the Lakers. You made some offseason moves. They want to see some signs of 2019. They want to see some signs that give them hope that they could make a deep run in the playoffs. And right now, they're really not getting it. So when you come home and lose to a Chicago team that I think the Bulls, I've said before, I'm a Bulls fan. I go to that game every year with my son, Peyton, who's 14 now. He wears his McCollum jersey and sits there and talks trash for 2 hours. and I threaten to kick him out of the house and get to stepping, And so last night the Bulls come back and win, and I can't talk trash to my son. I was really bummed about that. But the fact that Portland Trailblazers fans know they own the Bulls in the last 5 or 6 years, to lose to them without Lauri Markkanen as well shouldn't happen. It just shouldn't. Especially, here's the other thing, coming off of the road trip. When I presented the fact that they had played a tough schedule, Lillard said, yeah, we played a tough schedule, but we're disappointed. We wanted to be 4-2. Well, okay, if you want to be 4-2 with that tough schedule, then how do you not take care of the Bulls? That doesn't make any sense. So to me, there's red flags everywhere, but it's not time to panic.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Everything's magnified this time of year. If the Blazers were 5-2, it would be, too much praise.
Right. Oh my God, we're going to do it now.
Right. And so if last night happened on March 3rd, it would have been, a bad loss. That was a bad loss, but because it's where it's at. It was at home. They were up 20 and so on and so forth. And it's so early in the year. I just think everything is more magnified now. I don't know. Do you want to continue? We kind of lost our order there. But
let me expand on something I wrote about this week, because I think it holds true even though last night was bad, and that is this. I wrote about this coming off the road trip. So they went 3-3, but I looked at the records and the schedules of every team that had a 500. That was above 500. Sorry, and their combined strength of schedule. The Blazers combined. Sorry, I'm gonna start over. The Blazers' strength of schedule in comparison to every team that had a winning record was way more difficult, like way strong. Like 22-14 were the combined records of the teams they faced, with a 611 winning percentage, whereas teams like the Lakers, Clippers, even Philadelphia played a group of teams that collectively were under 500 for the most part, right? So you had the toughest schedule, plus 4 games were on the road, plus you played 5 teams 4 were playoff teams last year. One, the Warriors obviously were down last year, but we all know why. They were without Clay and Curry. Curry was back. So that was a rough stretch. To go 3-3 was more than respectable. Then you come home to play a stretch of 10 of 12 at home. And those 12 teams came into the week with a collective win percentage of .434. So it's a much easier schedule. They only played 3 winning teams coming into the week: Indiana, Atlanta, and the Knicks. I mean, if you can't handle those 3 teams at home, you have bigger issues. So to me, I felt like if they're legit and if they've really, made strides defensively, we just haven't seen it yet because they played a bunch of really good teams on the road, former MVPs, et cetera, then show it during the stretch by winning 9 of 12. I mean, to me, that's realistic because they're going to be favored in every game. I almost guarantee every betting line is going to have them favored. They were a money line last night of -500. Right? You had to bet 500 to win 100 last night, and they lost. So they can still go 9-2 the rest of the way. But for me, the major red flags is, how do you not take care of business against a team like that if you think you're better than the 3-3 record you showed during that 6-game stretch against Utah, Houston, Lakers, Clippers, and twice against the Warriors? That doesn't make any sense to me. And then to hear Coach Stotts and Damian Lillard talk about a lack of effort, that their effort went away and they got outworked. That's just like, what? I mean, what are you talking about? How does that even happen? How at some point in the game do you, as Damian Lillard, look around and go, we're not working hard, and start smacking some fools upside the head? We can't lose. We can't lose to Kobe White and Zach LaVine when we beat LeBron James and Anthony Davis. That doesn't make any sense. Let's go. And they couldn't do it. Like it was astonishing. And the whole game, I'm watching it, and the Bulls fan in me is like, ooh, they might win the game. And the Blazers writer in me is like, what the hell are they doing? This doesn't make any sense. Like, I had 2 game stories going because I didn't know what the hell was going to happen after I started in the second half writing the Blazers win at home game story. So it was a very nerve-wracking and it was late game start. Anyway, I digress. So my question for you is, given all the things I just said there, and again, you've covered the NBA longer than I have. You've been through these things like that. The effort part, what does that say to you about this team that they couldn't find the effort to clamp down on the Bulls?
Yeah, 2 things. One, I'd like to go back and rewatch the game, and I wish I had had a chance to do that in more depth because I'd like to see who they were talking about. There was a couple plays late where, like, an offensive rebound for the Bulls. I think Porter grabbed it or something.
Yeah, there's 3 Blazers there, and they just stood there like this. And Porter went right inside of him and got the ball.
And I'm like, what is that? And
Exactly.
And it didn't end up costing them that possession. I think they ended up getting the ball, and Lillard went down and hit a 3 or something like that. But it's like, I think that's emblematic of, I suppose, what they're talking about. But I would like to see, in more detail, are they talking about Nurkic? Are they talking about Covington? I don't know. And I'm not saying they are. I would like to look more closely to see who specifically looks like they're dogging it, because effort is very rarely a problem with a Terry Stotts coach team.
Right.
For all his critics and all that stuff, his teams play hard, and the Blazers have played hard overwhelmingly during his time here. Again, this happens all the time in the league. First thing that comes to mind to me is the first game after Nate McMillan was fired. Greg Oden was waived. 3 guys traded, and the roster was blown up. It was in Chicago, in which Caleb Canales coached team of like 8 dudes went and stomped the Bulls on the road. Like, this kind of stuff happens.
And that was when the Bulls were good, right? Derrick Rose.
Yeah.
No, that was pre-Rose. That was pre-Rose. Yeah,
it was pre-Rose, but they were still better than that team. Trust me. That team went on to lose, I think, the final 13 games of the season or whatever. Not a good team. So, it happens, I guess, is the point. It is alarming because, and we're going to get into this, and I guess now's is well, no, we'll save that. But I'm concerned about Nurkic, and my rapid fire answer to him being an all-star in our last video looks awful right now. And obviously, the defense has all kinds of red flags all over the place. I just still go back to this team has a lot of new faces and important new faces playing important roles, and they haven't had enough time to practice and to get together and to build that chemistry. And we've come to just, I guess, take it, or expect that of a Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum led team, that they're gonna have good chemistry, that they're gonna figure it out. And right now they're in the process of figuring out both defensively. Coaches are trying to figure out lineups and rotations. I think we all want to see Gary Trent play more than he is. Melo hasn't been efficient. Nurkic has been, shaky. Damian Lillard is deferred more than I would like him to defer, especially early in the game. And I mean, we could go on down the list of the things that are kind of plaguing this team. Rodney Hood is injured, so there's a lot of little things, I guess, that are adding up to these larger problems. And I know, one thing that the modern NBA relies on is obviously threes. And Terry Stotts, at any point of any time of any season, says, I want to shoot more threes. I think we can both agree that they shot too many threes down the stretch last night. Was it like 13 or
16 in the
12
fourth?
Their last, and 12 or 13 of their last 15 shots were threes, something crazy, like something like that stands out when you lose a close game like that. I don't know how you think about their three and their shot selection.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. First of all, that McMillan was fired when the Bulls won 50 games. They did have Rose, so they were a much better team. And like you said, they went with a depleted team and whacked the Bulls. Okay, the 3-point thing, I have a personal bias against it. I think it's gone way over the top. Like, they shot 51 yesterday. To me, it's boring basketball watching two teams go down the court, put 2 guys in the corner, run pick and roll, either drive or kick it out to a 3. Like, it's just – I find that to be kind of boring for me. And maybe I'm just an old head, as the youngsters would call me. But
boy, all the analytics people are just going to come at you.
But there's a difference between mathematically it makes sense and whether it's fun to watch. Those are 2 different things, right? So I get why people do it. I just think it's just boring after a while. But so their goal this year is to shoot more threes. That's their goal. And they shot well last night. They shot 37.8%. I think the leading shooting team in the league last year was 38. So
the problem is they made their first 4 and they made 8 in the first quarter, right? So they shot well early.
So you shoot hot and then you cool off later, which is, I mean, that happened with them. They played some team this year. Oh, the Clippers shot like 60% in the first half from 3. And by the end of the game, they were down like 40 or something like that. So, yeah. So that's the question, though. Like, are you feeling it? So we're just going to keep shooting it. In the fourth quarter, you're like, yeah, we missed a bunch, but we're going to make him eventually. Let's just keep firing him. Or do you say Kobe White can't guard McCollum or Lillard? He's not a good defender. Like, that's one of the biggest things about the Bulls is their defense has not been very good over the years. And Kobe White's part of that problem. He can't guard McCollum or Lillard. Levine, oh my God, he's one of the worst defensive guards in the league. Why are one of those 2 not taking the ball to the basket and trying to make something happen and draw a foul, which Lillard did get some fouls later. But Stotts said after the game, I'm fine with it because I thought we got good looks. However, when Patrick Williams made the game 100-100 with a floater, and from that point on, the Blazers had McCollum and Covington both missed 2 3-point shots each. While
Dame missed 2, I think, also.
and I'm talking about the last like few minutes. I think Dame actually made the only one they scored, because Dame scored their final 8 points. It was 100-100. Dame scored their final 8 points on 5 free throws, one coming off getting fouled on a 3-pointer, and then a 3-point basket. The Blazers, though, got like a 13-footer from Porter. They got that 20-footer from Patrick Williams. Kobe White got a 20-footer. They got to the line, Wendell Carter. Like, they were scoring in a more traditional fashion, taking the open shot regardless of what it was. And there was one point really late in the game, I think one of those 2 McCollum threes, where the ball got loose. He got it, and he could have easily driven it closer. There was like no one in front of him and gotten a short little 8-10-footer, which we all know he just shoots those like layups. And he didn't. He just took the 3. And he bricked it. And to me, it's like when the game is that close and you're falling apart, take the easiest basket possible. He did not. And that was sort of their philosophy in that quarter. And it cost them because they shot 3 of 16.
Yeah. And, if they shoot 5 of 16, we're probably not talking about that right
now. So but that's the thing. And that's what Stotts was saying. I'll take it because I think we're going to make him.
And I hear what Terry's saying. If I think CJ's looks were pretty good. I think he was open. They were early in the shot clock, though, and I would like to see, whatever the shot is, it is what it is. If it's a good look, but pass the ball around. Get some ball and player movement.
But they don't care about that because they're not trying to get closer. If you have the open look with 8 seconds into the play clock, shoot it, because that means you're going to get more possessions and more shots.
Right, but we're in a tie game with crunch time in fourth quarter, and I don't care that they shot threes, and a 3 is a fine shot, especially for a team that includes Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Robert Covington. We can go on and on here. They have good shooters. I think Melo was on the court in crunch time too. So, but that doesn't mean, and going back to some of the early signs that I liked about this team was they seemed to be unselfish, and guys would pass up open shots for a better shot, and. Right. Maybe that could have happened last night in some of those situations. And I'm not, again, CJ shots were pretty good shots. And Robert Covington, one of his was contested in the corner, and maybe there could have been a better look there. But maybe if you just pass the ball around, you'll get a better look, which is sort of, I think we're agreeing in a different sort of way. I don't mind the threes. I don't think you need to shoot 13 or 15 or whatever it was to end the game. But if that's your best shot. No. I mean, it was like something like 12 of their last. Yeah, it was like 3 after 3 after 3 after 3 after 3. And many of them to end the game were early in the clock. And that's great for the majority of the game because that's how the Terry Stotts flow offense goes. But that doesn't mean that you can't get a better shot late in the game. So, right. I don't know. I would like to see better shots. And
the Bulls actually went 3 of 12 from 3 in the fourth quarter. So they were trying to do the same thing too until the last 4 minutes. And then they were like, we can get nice little mid-range shots and make them. And that's how they built a 106, 100 lead. And then, of course, Levine hits that deep 3 to kind of put the game a little bit out of reach. They were not out of reach, but gave them a nice little 2-possession lead. Anyway, that's what they're going to do. I mean, they're going to shoot.
Switching gears totally here, Aaron, is I think what we've learned more than anything through 7 games is how badly this team needs Yusef Nurkic.
Right? That would mitigate what we're talking about, because if he's scoring inside more often at a higher percentage, that maybe it reduces the number of threes, hopefully. Anyway, no, you're 100% right. So he right now is averaging 9.4 points and 7.9 rebounds. His career with the Blazers, he was at 15 and almost 10. So he's clearly not performing very well. He's not shooting very well. He's committing a ton of turnovers. His turnovers per game are down, but that's because his minutes are down. But he's at 2 turnovers per 25 minutes, which is not what you want from your big guy. He's missing shots that you're used to seeing him miss. They did try to give him a lot of touches last night, but he wasn't closing out, against a 6'9" Wendell Carter. You know what I mean? So he's clearly not where he needs to be. Now, at the beginning of the season, he talked about needing to get into shape, et cetera. So maybe he's still working his way into shape. Maybe he's just trying to, get his feel around the basket sharpened, because they didn't have a training camp. He missed most of training camp, and he missed the first preseason game. So who knows? I mean, we can make a bunch of excuses for him. But if he's going to average 9 and 8 the rest of the year, and you turn to Cantor, who lit up Golden State for 24-12, but also got lit up because he doesn't play defense, then that's a huge hole at the center position that you're not counting on. Because as far as I'm concerned, and I think everyone who follows this team, they need Nurkic to maybe not be an all-star. I mean, he's not going to make the all-star team. There's too many big men in the West, but to at least play like a guy who might receive some consideration, right? And that means being 19-10, which is within his grasp. I mean, he's been 17-10. Why can't he be 17-10 again or 19-10 and be more consistent? What say you on this subject?
I agree. And, when I look at him playing right now, I wonder how good a shape he's in and how close he is to being in, regular season shape. It's clear that he entered the season not in optimal shape. I wonder, we maybe took for granted what we saw in the bubble from him when he played so well so early. It's easy to forget that he, as much as anyone, certainly grew comfortable playing alongside Maurice Harkless and Al-Farouq Aminu. Mm-hmm. And he's getting used to two completely new forwards, obviously. And I wonder how much that's impacting him. One thing that was different last night about what we had seen, at least in the last couple games, was Dame going to him regularly. And you can tell that for Dame, and he sees, obviously, the importance. And we all know how important Dame thinks he is to the team, rightfully so. Trying to get him touches and get him going, which not only keeps him engaged, but keeps him engaged defensively and gets everything else going for this team. And you got to have more out of him in every aspect. It kind of, he's kind of going back to his laissez-faire, throwing up soft shots at the rim. Like, I'm getting back to my dunk the basketball, Nurkic. Like, be a beast down there. And
be the biggest guy on the court.
And we're just, for whatever reason, we're not seeing it. And I would wonder what he would say about that. He's not always very enlightening about this sort of a thing. I think part of it was a layoff and, part of it's getting used to new personnel and sort of that thing and not getting as many touches as he'd like. But I like that Dame went to him as often as he did. And the Blazers played well during those stretches for the most part. Going back to your, not shooting as many threes, he's a guy that not a lot of teams have, an inside-outside presence and just a beast down low. And man, the Blazers are going to need him to get back to being a beast if they're going to fulfill their promise.
He did have 12 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, but 6 of 15. And that's, to me, that's the problem. He needs to be against a team like that without a legitimate interior presence who can body him. I mean, Wendell Carter has some bulk to him. He's 270, but he's 6'9". But he was 6 for 15. He should be 9 for 15, at worst, 10 for 15, maybe in a game like that. And then it's a different story late in the game. But they need to get that guy going. So let's shift now to actually, I don't want to get to this later, this topic. I'm going to change and go to defensive issues. I'm going to switch it up on you. Sorry. And I'm going to go to this because every game, and I know you ignore this stuff more than I do. I tend to engage. I tend to engage on Twitter a little bit because I just find it fascinating. But every game I'm seeing defense this, defense that. And one of our, mutual former, actually, you never worked with Dwight, but someone who's covered the Blazers forever.
I worked with Dwight.
Did you?
Yeah.
At the Oregonian?
Yeah, for maybe a year or two.
Oh, yeah, back in the prep days. Yeah, okay. That's right. Anyway, he asked thoughts after the Golden State game, and why they didn't blitz more on Curry. And fans are constantly talking about this. I mean, the casual fan to guys who have their own podcasts and their own, analytics sites and things like that. They're always talking about how Stotts won't blitz. Why won't you trap more? Why won't you show different coverages? Take the ball at someone like Curry's hand when he's that hot. And Stotts wanted to do that at the beginning of the year. That was the plan. And they got lit up by Denver. And now they've resorted back to the same old defensive strategies. What do you think about this issue? For me, who hasn't covered the team that long, clearly this has been a complaint. I remember guys complaining about it when I was on Talking Ball back in the day, and I just didn't care because I was more worried about the Ducks. But now that I'm covering this team, I've been paying more attention to it, and I've been actually going out and watching, videos of other teams and how they blitz teams and do things like that. I don't know if, the Blazers are equipped to be great at that. But what do you think about that whole situation? And is this a concern still with this team?
I think you've got to be versatile with that. And I think he could be less stubborn than he is about that. Now, it's tough with Yusef Nurkic because there was a couple plays, one late in crunch time, Dame got screened and a guy, I can't remember who it is, who hit one of those mid-range jumpers you were talking about late in the game. Mm-hmm. And Nurkic can't get out there. He's not going to get out there and do anything to that, at least not consistently. Maybe if there's a Harry Giles Jr. or someone in there like that, or if Zach was healthy, and man, boy, how badly could this team use Zach Collins right now?
Yeah.
But I think you need to be equipped and have the ability to be able to do that in stretches to at least, slow a guy who's hot or throw him into a different look to kind of rattle him and get him out of his rhythm. Terry has always been very reluctant to do that. And a lot of it is personnel driven, I think. And their defense, I still maintain a lot of it gets back to my tired excuse for them, which is they didn't have a camp to get ready. They didn't have practice time to implement stuff to the degree that they would like to. They didn't have a long enough preseason to test it out and iron out the kinks. And so they had to work it out on the fly. And rather than continue to work it out on the fly, which they're still doing to a degree, he's resorted to what the majority of the guys know and I guess he thinks does best. I think you've got to be able to do more, though. You got to be able to switch more. You got to be able to blitz more, just with how ball and guard dominant the league is right now.
I would say at least show it.
Right.
You don't have to do it 50-50, but you can show it. And it's got
to be the threat. There has to be the threat of it.
And at least you get them thinking. I don't know if that stops Curry. I mean, Curry's been lighting up the league for 10 years now. I mean, if you just had the blitz Curry to stop him from lighting you up, then he wouldn't have 2 MVPs and a scoring title and multiple titles. But I can see where, it's frustrating as a fan to watch Curry obliterate what you're doing for 62 when he's got a mediocre supporting cast around him. I think there's validity in that complaint. However, this leads me to the next topic that I'm going to move up the ladder on you, because I think it's fascinating as well, is that does any of this, reluctance to change the defense or the fact that the offense has these ebbs and flows and can fall apart despite having Dame and CJ mean that Stotts is failing as a coach?
We're 7 games into the season.
I know, but this stuff goes back further than that. But go ahead.
But this is a team that has gone to the playoffs, 8 years in a row?
Since 14, right?
Yeah, 8. I think it's 8 years in a row. It might be 7 in a row.
7.
Yeah. So two trips to the second round, a Western Conference Finals trip. Let's play counter argument here. People who are wanting Terry Stotts to get fired.
Who are you going to get?
What are you going to do? You're 7 games into the season. Your best player, your MVP candidate, your franchise cornerstone, that would be the worst thing for Dame. He would be so angry, right? So you get rid of Terry. You jeopardize, Dame's happiness for what? What do you do then? Do you promote an assistant? Is an assistant going to dramatically change with this team? You go get someone off their couch during a pandemic? Who do you go get right now that's going to do that? And you've had this whole thing that you've created over the years of this chemistry of this organization, of your cornerstone, your GM, and your coach in lockstep. I think they are the longest tenured trio at each of those their respective positions in the NBA. They've had overwhelming success, consistent success. They haven't won the pinnacle, obviously. They've gotten to the Western Conference Finals, so they've gotten pretty close. And we're 7 games into the season with 2 new starters, with no training camp, basically, with no practice time. I'm not trying to make excuses because I don't care if who comes or not. I think it's ridiculous.
No,
it's a ridiculous argument right now.
I'm not a big fire coach guy. All my life, I always take the coach and GM side first, and I argue forever until I run out of arguments. And I'm like, okay, you're right, you should be fired.
Wait. Do you run out of arguments?
Every once in a while, I will.
That would be breaking news. That should be the title of this video right there.
Every once in a while, you reach in the bag, you're like, there's no more arrows. Like, damn. So, someone the other day on Twitter was saying how they've underachieved under Stotts. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, in 2014, they won the first playoff series in 14 years, right? Mm-hmm. Against Houston, okay? Then they lost to the Spurs. There's no way they're going to beat the Spurs. That was overachieving. Then the next year, they lost to Memphis, but Aldridge got hurt, and they lost Wesley Matthews for the year. They were not the same team when they got to that playoff series as they were starting the season and during the season. They were looking like they might make a deep run, right? So that's not underachieving when your best player's hurt and your third best player is out for the season with an Achilles tear. So they lose Aldridge, and Vegas has them as over under 23 wins. Mm-hmm. And they made the playoffs.
They went to the second round.
Right. Now, the second round thing, the Clippers lost Paul and Griffin. But, yeah, they did make the second round when they were picked to win less than 23 by many people, right? Mm-hmm. That's way overachieving. So then the next year was the year they lost to – so that was 16. So then who did they lose to in 17?
Man, I'm too old to scrape my memory. That wasn't New Orleans. That wasn't New Orleans.
No, that's 18. So 18 is the
one year.
It was
Golden State,
right. So 18 is the 1 year I'll say they underachieved getting swept like that by the Pelicans as a 3 seed against a 6 seed. Although I maintained that entire spring, they were a 7 seed masquerading as a 3 seed. They were only a 3 seed because Butler was out for Minnesota. Kawhi was out for the Spurs. Rudy Gobert missed the first 27 games for Utah, and DeMarcus, I'm saying Kirk Cousins. DeMarcus Cousins was lost for the year by the Pelicans. But anyway, so they shouldn't have got swept. That was an achievement. But then they come back the next year and they made the West Finals, which to me was an overachievement. Granted, they got smoked by the Warriors, but everyone got smoked by the Warriors when they had Durant, although Durant missed that series, I think. Still, everyone got smoked by the Warriors during that stretch except for LeBron. So the idea that he's underachieved with this team to me is a joke. And here's another thing, Blazer fans. Whenever I see Blazers fans talking about we should win a title, Dame Lillard, dude, this is not a championship team. Study your history. I challenge anyone listening to this to come on Twitter and tell me who this team resembles of the last 40 years of NBA champions. There's not one. There's nothing about this team that screams championship. If this team wins the championship going through the Clippers and the Lakers and then maybe beating Durant and Kyrie in the finals or Boston even, that would be phenomenal. It'd be one of the most major upsets in the history of the NBA. So stop thinking that Stotts needs to be fired because he can't get you to the finals when you don't have a finals roster. And stop thinking that O'Shea should be fired because he can't go out and get you Durant or LeBron, because they're not coming here. If you don't have those types of players, you're not winning the title. So I think it's ridiculous. You're not going to do better than Stotts. There's not one coach out there that has a better track record than Stotts who's coming to Portland. And if you roll the dice on a young coach, they might come in and blitz more for you. But guess what? They're going to have a bunch of other issues. And by a month into it, you're going to want them fired too. So I think like last night they didn't lose because of Stotts. They lost because Dame shot horribly and Nurkic shot horribly. And the defense went to sleep in the second half, and that's not on Stotts. Rant over.
Yeah, I just don't – I think that we don't know who this team is yet. We're 7 games into the season. I keep saying that, but it's – if you want to level your criticisms and judge Terry, do so – does the season still end in April? I don't know when this thing ends.
At the midway point, if they're 500 at the midway point, then I think you can examine it and say what's going on here is Stotts the problem. But I still don't think it's going to be Stotts is going to be the problem. Like, look, to me, where was Dame last night? Like, why didn't Dame say, "Give me the ball. We're not losing this damn game"? That's what a superstar is supposed to do, right? He didn't do that against the Bulls. Curry did that the other night. Give me the damn ball and drop 62. So,
I think actually that touches on an interesting point because it's a dicey line with that right now with this team because in some level they're still getting to know each other. And as in Dame's position, like I think he should have taken over down the stretch, but also
in the fourth quarter. I'm not talking about the first three quarters. I'm talking about the fourth quarter when the Bulls got to within 2 with 7 minutes to go. Dame should have been like, I'm about to drop 20 these last 7 minutes because no one on that team can stop me.
Right. You have to make the right basketball play, though, right? You have to pass to an open teammate. So
I'm not giving it to Covington for clutch 3 when the guy's shooting 18% from 3 or something like that. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, fair, but I mean, Covington had a good game up until he played a very good first half, I thought. And again, you got to build. Look, if I'm Dame, I'm playing the long game here. I want Covington to be on my side. I want him to be in my corner when we get to April, when we get to May, or whenever. I don't want him to think if he's open in the corner and I'm double teamed, then I'm not going to pass him the ball. This is one game in whatever month. We're December now. I'm all messed up because usually we're in November now, or October.
We're in January, buddy.
See, there we go. See, it's not even December anymore. Thank God 2020 is over, though. So again, that's why Dame is the best leader, or among the best leaders, and among the best players in the NBA. He knows his locker room, and he gains the trust of his locker room better than anyone else. And so maybe if this is a different point in the season, there might have been a different tactic there. But again, you're still getting to know guys. Guys are still getting to know the system, and Dame can't take every shot in the fourth quarter.
He can't take every shot, but I'll get to know guys before the game, the first 3 quarters, and after the game. I'm not losing to the Bulls at home if I have something. If I'm arguably the best point guard in the game and an MVP candidate, I'm not going out like that. But I play NBA 2K. So NBA 2K in that situation, Lillard's taking every shot. and I'm gonna change the sliders. I'm gonna change the sliders so he makes every shot. But I'm not being overly critical of him. I'm not trying to be. I'm just saying, at some point you have to say, I'm not allowing us to lose this game because we're not playing well in the fourth quarter. So I would have liked to have seen them do that. And to me, that's more. Him playing poorly is more why they lost than anything Stotts did strategically. And he's been playing great. I mean, shooting 48% from 3 the last 3 games or something like that. So it's not like he's playing poorly overall, but I would have liked to see him take more control like he did actually in the last minute of the game. One more point I want to make too, and like you say 7 games in and you're 100% right. And I've been like playing it's no big deal for 6 games. I just still was alarmed by last night. And maybe because I know the Bulls so well, so I know how mediocre they are. To alarm me maybe more than some people. But listen to this real quick, and I think this is important moving forward. If we can just move this loss aside, 10 out of 12 at home, counting last night, I thought they'd win 9 of the 12. They're going to be favored in all 12. Maybe this was just one of the 3 losses. Maybe they win 9 in a row and then lose 2. Who knows? You never know how it's going to go. But one thing that struck me when I looked at their defensive rating, which was 28th entering the week, is that they played 3 of the top 6 offensively rated teams in the league. And I mean, Lakers were 3rd, Clippers 4th, Utah 6th, Houston 14th, and then Golden State was 19th. But of course, Curry went nuts. That is a rough stretch of teams to play in terms of their offense. Now, Philadelphia entering the week had a defensive rating of 100 compared to the Blazers 115 or whatever it is. 100. They're leading the league in defensive rating. So you might think, wow, they're amazing defensively. Well, are they? The best team they played from an offensive rating standpoint was Washington at 11. Then they played the Knicks at 25, Cleveland at 29, Toronto at 28, Orlando at 16, and Charlotte twice at 24. So that's an imbalance of opponents in terms of their strength of offense. So to me, the Blazers are not as bad as 28. I think that's going to rise up. I think by the end of this 12-game stretch, they're going to be in the teens. And the Sixers are not that great defensively. They're good, but they're not that great. They played a bunch of bad offenses. So I do believe it's going to balance out. And to what you said earlier, no training camp, or not a real training camp, short preseason, adding new guys. I do think things are going to start to gel as they move forward, and their stats are getting better as they keep playing mediocre teams.
And when you look at the NBA landscape right now, man, it is so much of a team.
It's crazy. The Clippers lost by 50 one night to Dallas, and then Dallas went and got smoked at home by Charlotte.
Yeah, Blazers beat the Warriors by 25 and then lost 2 nights later. Like, this is what we're looking at in 2021. It is a different, it's some level a different game because of the schedule and playing teams twice in some level and teams not having as much time to prepare and so on and so forth, all the things we've talked about. But again, we're 7 games in. The Blazers have been, okay to mediocre, to bad. It depends on the night. They have a win against the Lakers. Were people talking about firing Terry Stotts after the win against the Lakers? So,
nope. Well, probably because LeBron had 29.
Well, and maybe
let's him.
And so I don't know. I mean, the Jazz are 4-3, Pelicans are 4-3, Warriors are 4-3, Blazers are 3-4, Mavs are 3-4, Nuggets are 3-4. Like, it's a whole bunch of mediocre there.
Raptors are 1-5.
Who the Raptors? Right.
And 5. Miami Finals team 3-3. The Nets, Durant and the Kyrie 3-4. Bucks best record in the league last year, 4-3. Perspective, right?
Right, perspective, exactly. And I know that's hard as a fan, especially when there's been so much expectations, and we've been talking this team up for so much for so long. But I still think this is a good team. I think when it's all said and done, they're going to be a good team. This is just all part of the journey, man.
I agree. Okay, one last thing. Would you trade?
Man, I thought we were going to get out of here without this.
No, I have to.
I thought we skipped over it.
I have to do this. Because I'm fascinated by this, because for the first time I can remember, a marquee major star has said they would welcome going to Portland. I guess the last one would be Pippen, but he was not an MVP or a 4-time scoring champ like James Harden. Any package would include McCollum. Would you explore that if you're Portland?
I don't want James Harden on my team if I have a choice.
Dude,
it's just plain and simple.
Come on.
It's
show business, not show friends.
Well, I don't, but sure. But I think the Houston experiment failed, right? And
they made the West Finals. They lost. They failed. Who they lose to? They failed. That's the thing. They lost to the Durant and Curry Warriors. And they lost to the LeBron and AD Lakers. To me, that's not failing. To me, that's coming up against an impenetrable wall.
He embodies everything about 17 minutes ago, one of your rants. He embodies everything about the rant that you dislike. He would do. What do you mean? He would do what I wanted Lillard to do. He would listen. If they had all threes, it would be all threes. No, wouldn't he? Gets to the rack. 73s. He gets to the rack. What are you talking about? He's the best magician in the NBA at getting to the rack and drawing fouls. He's phenomenal. Hey. That's great. You can have him on your team. I don't want to watch him 82 games a year. Oh, my God, dude. That game the other night against Portland was watching an artist at work. He totally, without Wall, without Cousins, he totally, with precision, he pulled out a scalpel and just sliced and diced Portland's defense. It was amazing, especially from the end zone angle. To watch him work like that was just phenomenal. You put James Harden on this team with Lillard, that makes Lillard better. I know fans out there are like, oh, they couldn't play together, blah, blah, blah. Harden led the league in scoring last year with Russell Westbrook taking one more shot per game. So he played with a high-end guard, a high-volume shooting guard, and allowed that guy to shoot more than him and led the team in assists. He would do the same with Dame. And the bottom line is those two would be in most NBA games with competitive teams. When you're playing a series, you're going to have a lot of games that are going to come to the last 5 minutes. There's not, I'll say right now, there's not more than 3 teams in the league that in those last 4 or 5 minutes are beating Harden and Damian Lillard. Dame can play with anybody in the league. He would definitely. Well, I know he can play with anybody. I'm agreeing with you. But anybody. Okay, I see what you're saying. Go ahead. Yeah. He would definitely make that work. Any idea that those two guys can play together is ludicrous. But that's ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, how many coaches has James Harden gotten fired? How many? He's an MVP and led the league in scoring 4 straight years, and he's led the league in assists. He is better than Lillard. I don't know him personally. From what I hear, there's a lot of drama that surrounds him. This team needs an edge. It needs some drama. Man, it's not the kind of drama any team needs. Okay,
Okay, so this is a great example of the difference between our GM minds. Because I if I'm Neil O'Shea and I've been trying to get a star here since I've been here, and I lost the only other All-Star I've had in Aldridge, who went to San Antonio, which turned out to be a mistake. He should have stayed here because maybe they would have become a contender. Could you imagine Dame, LaMarcus, and then McCollum? Because McCollum wasn't really a player when Aldridge was here. And I have a chance to get a 4-time scoring champ, an MVP who's unguardable, who wants to come to Portland. I'm calling him up and I'm saying, Dame and Nurk stay. You can take any 3 guys on my roster and I'll give you picks. And then I backfill the roster from there, because all this here's something that bugs me. All this talk about we're 10 deep, we're 11 deep. No, if you're 11 deep, it's because you don't have 8 guys you love. You should be playing 11 guys. You should trade 3 and now you're down and add Harden and now you're to 9. That's what you want to be. Not we got 11 dudes. Come on, get out of here. If they want Trent, Simons, Collins, McCollum, Covington, whatever it takes to bring Harden here, I do that in a nanosecond. And the fans will cry for like a week because everyone loves CJ. And, CJ's a great guy, great player, but he's not Harden. Everyone will cry for a week until they see Harden and Lillard lighten up the league. And then they'll be like buying James Harden jerseys and having their little kids wear beards and stuff.
I think if the Blazers traded for Harden, I think that a large percentage of fans would celebrate it. I don't think that they would all be mad. I
agree.
I think that they would celebrate a star wanting to come here. I just think that there's a lot that goes into building a roster, and a person like Neil O'Shea certainly knows James Harden well, would know whether or not it would be worth bringing him in. You're just going to give up everybody on the roster for him, right? So you're going to have 2 guys.
No, you're not going to trade everybody. I'm saying they can only take 3 or 4 guys, depending on the 3 or 4. But everyone on the roster is available except for Dame and Nurkic. Take whatever 3 guys you want, maybe 4, depending on the 4th, and then I'll backfill the rest and go from there. Because now I'm down to an 8 or 9 man rotation with Harden, and look, you win at the top. Like you don't win championships with the 8, 9, 10 guy.
Of course,
right? You win with the 1, 2, 3. So you're elevating your 1 and 2 with the one. It would be one of the greatest guard duos ever. Like I'm trying to think of a better offensive guard duo in the history of the league. Curry and Clay. That's it. Like think of it. I mean, if I'm missing someone, let me know.
If we're playing Fantasy Island, like I'd rather have Draymond Green or I'd rather have Drew Holiday
than Harden.
Like, yes.
If you're keeping McCollum, I wouldn't trade McCollum for Harden.
No. I'm just talking about who I'm adding as a player. Again, it's not that James isn't a fantastic player and him and Dame wouldn't be a fantastic tandem. I just would rather go in a different direction if I'm building a team.
Okay, but here's the thing, Joe. And this is the conversation I keep having with some fans too. They say, I'd rather do X. X doesn't exist.
We don't even know that Y exists now.
Well, he put them on the list at least. So you explore. The question was, do you explore it? So like Paul George, people were pissed on Paul George.
Of course you explore it.
People are dumping on Paul George. Who are you going to get better than Paul George? I mean, right now, tell me this team wouldn't be better with Paul George instead of Covington and Jones. You see the limitation.
I don't think people are doubting. Anybody with NBA knowledge is not disputing that.
I'm just saying there's a pocket of fans out there who keep talking about, no, I'd rather have. And there aren't other options out there. They're limited. And for the fact that this guy wants to come to Portland, you get him at any expense, and then you worry about the other stuff later. Right? You worry about the other stuff later, man. I mean, to me, that's just a no-brainer. So, but who knows? O'Shea may have called Houston, said, I'll give you McCollum and such, and Houston hung up the phone. That could be a thing too. But I'm just saying, if that deal's available in a millisecond, I'll cry, I'll be sad, I'll give CJ a hug.
You're not crying.
No, I'm saying
you're
if I'm
not hugging anybody in a pandemic. Oh,
if I'm the GM, I'd be sad. I drafted McCollum. He's a great guy. He and Lillard are boys, but they're never going to win a title with those two as your best 2 players. It's never going to happen.
And you would have said last night that the Bulls would have never beat the Blazers last night.
Well, no, I would have definitely not thought they would have won that game. But like you said, we all know those things happen in the NBA. But what doesn't happen is teams winning the NBA title with 2 6'2", 6'3" guards who don't play great defense and are shoot force guards. So, I mean, that's just never happened in history in the NBA. So I don't believe it's going to happen with this team. They need another star. So anyway, anything else? You got anything else?
I was just going to let you keep going and lobbying for James Harden as long as you wanted.
Hey. Anyway, okay. So I think we've exhausted a lot through the first 7 games. So last thing I'll ask you, we talked about 10 of 12 at home. Now they're down to 9 of 12 at home. The 2 road games are, down to 9 of 11 at home. The 2 road games are at Sacramento. What do you think they're going to do these next 11 games? Can they still finish 9-3 in this 12-game stretch after a loss?
Boy, let's see. We got Minnesota, Sacramento, Toronto, Sacramento, Indiana, Atlanta, San Antonio, Memphis, New York, Oklahoma City, and then it's January 28th. Oh, I say, how many games is it? You said 11?
11 more. They're 0-1. I predicted, or I said they should win 9 of 12 coming in.
You got to win. You got to win 7 or 8 of those, I'd say. But more importantly, you need to look better. You have to look more cohesive. You have to play better. Your defense needs to show improvement. You need to lock down your rotation. You got to play Gary Trent more. You got to figure out that whole situation. You need to figure it. This should be a time where you get more practice time, no travel, and you should look better, regardless of what the record is. Because nights like last night are going to happen. Nights against the Lakers are going to happen. Somewhere in between, it balances itself out. And if you're a good team, you should win 7 to 8 of these next, 11 games. But I'm more concerned with how they look and how they play.
Okay, I agree with you on that point, but I do think wins are paramount because if you have a stretch of playing a bunch of weak teams, you're inevitably going to have a stretch where you're going to play some stronger teams. And in the Western Conference, if you're messing around with teams like Chicago and the Knicks and Memphis and stuff like that, at the end of the season, you're going to be a 7-8 seed and have to play the Clippers or Lakers as opposed to being a 4 or 5 seed. That's why those losses matter. McCollum even made that point last night. He's like, we can't be blowing 20-point leads at home against the Bulls. No offense to them, but these things are going to hurt us in the long run. So I agree with you. Looking better is important, but they have to be able to take care of business against teams like this, or I'm not going to take them seriously.
And this does bring up an interesting point. Under a normal circumstance, this long of a homestand would be immensely important because the Moda Center is such a decisive advantage for this team. But does that exist anymore? Does a home court advantage exist anymore? Do the Blazers win last night if they have 20,000 fans in the building? Probably. Like, there's a difference there. And I don't know that a home court advantage is, and I know that it's not.
Yeah, it's not the same. You're right. It's not the same, but it is better to be home than travel.
No question. And especially from the practice standpoint and getting more work in and that sort of a thing. So no question there.
Okay. All right. We've gone deep into this team for just 7 games. I think we're done. You got anything else? You want to add?
I don't think so. I mean, again, we're 7 games in, man. Yeah. Enjoy the ride. Stay patient. Maybe this team is like this. Maybe they're mediocre. I think they're better than this, and I think they will be better when they figure a lot of their things out. But 2 key things: defense. Give me a break. It's got to be better than this. But Yusef Nurkic, man, I think he now is the biggest issue. They've got to get him right. They've got to get him more touches. They need to get him bringing that defense, anchoring that defense and bringing it all together. If he's like this all year, it's going to be a long year.
Agreed. All right. For Joe Freeman, I'm Aaron Fentress. Thanks for watching, and we will be back soon, hopefully with a more positive episode.